The hardest time that I faced was my transition from the previous company to starting growing company because I had felt like there was some failure in that. I think I'm always questioning how I can be better at what I'm doing because my role as we grow constantly is evolving because the team needs more from me in different ways.
I can imagine all the complexities of acquisition, right? How did you go about making sure that they trusted you when you brought on that other company?
I think that was the most important thing I could have done to really ensure that this transition was successful.
Today's guest is a leader in the truest sense, someone who represents excellence in its purest form, the kind built quietly through years of discipline, mastery, and unwavering commitment to doing things the right way. Kyle Cahill, founder of Grow & Co. Company, has become one of the most respected leaders in the Texas landscape industry, not because he set out to build a big company, but because he set out to build a great one. Kyle's foundation was shaped through years of studying horticulture science at Texas A&M, where he developed a deep respect for soil, water, sunlight, and the ecosystems that connect them. His career reflects a steady, intentional climb, leading teams, managing complex projects, and earning trust through consistency, humility, and expertise. In 2016, Kyle launched Grow & Co. Company with a vision rooted in stewardship of the land, the craft, and the people who dedicate their lives to it. What began as a thoughtful idea has grown into a firm known for its holistic, science-driven approach and long-term care. Under Kyle's leadership, the company has expanded intentionally, guided by a people-first culture and unwavering commitment to quality. Today, Kyle serves as chair-elect of Texas Nursery and Landscape Association, is a Texas certified landscape professional, and a respected voice in sustainable landscape practices and leadership. His influence extends beyond his company, helping shape the direction of the industry itself. What truly distinguishes Kyle is a quiet strength behind his work. He reminds us that real excellence isn't loud, it's lived. Kyle, welcome to the show.
Wow. Thank you.
Of course. I like to start every episode with the same question because I think there's something so important about learning of your earliest experiences. They shape us, they mold us, they drive our motivation, and ultimately set the course for who we become. So to dive right into your incredible journey, the reason we're here today, I want to start with this. Can you walk us through what your childhood and upbringing looked like and what forces shape who you become?
Well, thank you very much. I'm excited to be here and speak with you, and I think that's a wonderful question. Wow, it's a pretty powerful one too. So thinking back on my childhood and upbringing and how that has shaped who I am today, from early on, I remember always working outside. I'm from Southeast Texas. I always loved to work in the yard. That was something that my dad and I did on the weekends. We had about 3/4 of an acre of at our house, and that is a lot of St. Augustine grass. And in Southeast Texas, you probably should be mowing that twice a week. So I remember my weekends being filled with working in the landscape, helping my dad Saturdays and Sundays. And I guess strangely enough, I really enjoyed it. I didn't quite see it as a chore. I liked going out there, seeing what I had to do, and then seeing the immediate impact of doing the job. So I did really enjoy that, and I had a few lawns in the neighborhood that I also took care of growing up, and I took pride in knowing that hey, I'm out here working on the weekends. I think some of my friends are all out playing, but I'm ready to earn some money and work. I do remember that too. So I would say, both of my parents too worked really hard, and were and were driven at what they did. My dad works in the medical industry. My mom worked for an oil and gas company, and then stay-at-home mom with 4 kids, and also ran a nonprofit that taught financial literacy and responsibility to children. And so they were both very, very busy. So I definitely saw the drive and the work ethic from both of them, um, uh, to kind of give me an example of what working hard really means. And then I would say one of probably the biggest impact. My parents divorced when I was, golly, turning 13 years old, and that really kind of flipped my world upside down. It was unexpected, and basically at that point in time, I always kind of feel like that's a point in my life where I kind of saw the other side and went from, a childhood of consistency and security and safety, and basically my goal was getting through the school year to get to summer vacation, you know, um, to then, kind of growing up overnight and having to adapt to that. A lot of things changed after that, and a lot of things in the moment and at the time were very difficult for myself and my siblings and the family to really go through. But as I reflect back on that, there's a lot of lessons that I learned there. There's a lot of situations that I think have that I had to deal with that set me up for who I am today, and things that I deal with on a day-to-day basis, navigating the life of a business owner. And with that came a lot of challenges, and learning to adapt, and learning to really get that mental clarity, focus, how to take, a negative situation and learn from it. And I think from that too, it's probably why I've been driven to build a company and the culture that is have a very solid foundation, and that's built with a solid foundation so that we can continue to grow properly as a company that way. Probably because of my previous experience, having that foundation rocked, and seeing what that's done. So that's thinking about my childhood and upbringing. That's probably been the significant reason of what shaped me, and why I am the way I am today. Amongst many other things, throughout that time, I've met incredible people and mentors, friends. My wife, who has had, just an incredible impact on me as well. So, yeah, does that answer your question?
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for that, Kyle. It's definitely an incredible journey, and definitely want to dive into everything that you've done and where you are today. So, I was reflecting on things that we have in common, and one of the main things is that we went to the greatest Texas school, which is Texas A&M in College Station. And I saw that you studied horticulture science and biotechnology. You kind of talked a little bit about that, doing lawns and all of that. What did that look like for you when you went to college? Was it like, this is definitely what I want to do with my career in entrepreneurship? Like, how did that come about?
Yeah, uh, another great question. It was not, you know, and simply because I didn't even know horticulture really existed as a education track or something you could go to college to study. I started my college career at Texas State University, and I was studying business. And after my first year, I didn't I knew I did not really find the business track very intriguing. I felt like I was more going through the motions. As a matter of fact, I dropped out of school after my freshman year at Texas State University and went to work at a lumberyard in Mississippi, and spent that summer working at the lumberyard. And that was a summer, it was on the Gulf Coast of Mississippi that Hurricane Katrina came through. And so Katrina came into the community, and I had a bunch of family who lives in that area. And I was living with them, had stepped away from school to kind of regroup and really think, what is my next step? Is college for me? What do I want to do? That was kind of a moment in my life as well where I reflected and really wanted to decide what was my next step. So I was working for the lumber company in Waveland, Mississippi. Hurricane Katrina came through, completely wiped out the entire area. I ended up coming back and working for that company because, as you could imagine, lumber was a hot commodity following such a devastating storm, hurricane, and worked for this company for that about 6 months following the storm, and realized during that time I had a moment of clarity as I was sitting there that, okay, I want to go back to school, and I always wanted to go to Texas A&M. So at that time, I resigned from the lumber company, and one of my good buddies and I moved to College Station, and I had saved up all my money, paid my rent in advance, and applied to Texas A&M. And during that process, as I was visiting the campus, I saw greenhouses on the campus, and I thought, interesting. Let me go check out this school, because reflecting back on my childhood, I loved working in the yard. I'd always grown a garden, always loved having vegetables and fruits that I tried to grow. It was just always intrigued by that, but I had no idea that you could actually study it. So saw the greenhouses on campus, went and spoke with the advisor for the horticulture department, and that really opened my eyes up to the potential. So I applied to the horticulture department, got in, and started my journey at that time, and really just enjoyed the curriculum. It was hands-on. We were in the greenhouses, we were growing. That was something that better suited me, and that's how I found the horticulture department. That's how I found out what horticulture was, and that's been my journey ever since.
That's awesome. I think it's always unique to see how what we end up doing finds us. Sometimes it's not what we think it's going to be, and I think a lot of times we have an idea, and then just life has a funny way of putting us on the path that we end up in. So I want to transition into the foundation and the evolution of Growing Co, because I think your journey, your business journey is very unique, as everything that you've done, and kind of working in a landscape company and then going into and opening your own company. I want to understand the evolution, the decisions, the risk, the lessons, the mindset behind it. So my question to you is, could you walk us through the process of forming a Growing Co company, from the spark to building your first team, and then the realization that, hey, this is actually becoming something real? What was that like for you?
Yeah. So when I graduated from A&M, I went and worked for a firm in Dallas that I'd done an internship with during my time at Texas A&M, and was exposed to a lot of high-end, really well done landscape and design, installation, maintenance work, and really enjoyed my internship there. Wanted to work there, and spent the next 9 years of my career really learning. The company was growing tremendously at that time. So with that, I had the opportunity to grow with them, and was exposed to a lot of things early in my career that I would not have necessarily been exposed to had I joined a larger firm with a more traditional growth pattern. This was hyper growth, and doing things that weren't necessarily in your job description, but you were learning, you're on the front lines of learning these things, and really gave me an opportunity to be exposed to a lot of business operations strategies that I necessarily wouldn't have been which I am very grateful for because it has helped me. Um, when the company had decided to expand, I put my name in the hat to open up a Houston location. I was born in Houston, raised primarily in Beaumont, Texas, so it was kind of a move home for me, if you will. And moved down here. We set up operations, and we had a lot of success early on. However, after about 2.5 years, the vision just wasn't as clear as it had needed to be, and so the company had pulled back. And I decided to, at that time, stay in Houston as opposed to move back to Dallas. And my wife was about 2 weeks from having our first child, and that was at the moment where I was like, okay, now is the time where I can take everything I've learned and go back to the basics, and we can start our own thing. And that's what my wife and I decided to do. And that's what I'd like to say, is that we really went back to the basics. I had gone from working on multi-million-dollar residential projects to working for my neighbors and installing, a few $100s worth of seasonal color myself, as opposed to managing teams of 45 people doing that. And it was good. It was something that was a good reset for me, and also allowed me the opportunity to be very present when we had our first child, which was very important to me, and benefited me in ways that I wasn't even expecting. And so at that time, Susanna, my wife, and I, we decided to start Growing Company. And we started off really slow. As I mentioned, we spoke with our neighbors, our neighborhood. They were all very supportive. And, I went back to the basics. I was mulching people's yards. I was planting their seasonal color. I did small designs here and there, to the point where I was able to hire my first employee. And I brought him on board, and I had a helper, and we continued to do the same thing. And after about 6 months, earned enough money to buy a truck and a trailer, and was able to invest in that truck and that trailer. We were operating out of my garage and just growing one project at a time, and really taking what I had learned in my previous experience, knowing that was all about doing what you say you're going to do, quality, your reputation, really focusing on those things to help us go from one client to the next. Instagram was just really getting started, and so looking at our marketing, it was really word of mouth marketing, and going from project to project. So we continued to grow. Eventually, I had 3 employees. I had a big dumpster in my driveway and a truck and trailer parked outside. And in the neighborhood that I lived, we were all really close together. And my neighbors, who had been wonderful, they had been very supportive, looked at me and said, okay, Kyle, I think you're growing so much that you need to go find an office or something, because we love you up with it. You can't have guys reporting to work at 6 a.m. turning on a diesel truck. Like, we love you, but go find someplace else. So I knew at that time that's like, okay, I've got to grow. I've got to do something. This is starting to turn into something more than just out of the garage. And I spoke with my nurseryman at the time, who I bought plants from. All I really wanted was to find a piece of property where I could have my guys report, park my truck and trailer, and go from there. And he had introduced me to 2 gentlemen that had a smaller landscape firm, residential firm, and they had a piece of property that wasn't too far away. And he told me they were looking to sell their company. And that was something that I just was not, I quite honestly didn't think it was feasible. I was a one-man show with one crew, and did not have any money. Just had a new baby, really was saving all the money that I could from the work that we were doing. Um, did not think that this was feasible, but nonetheless, I needed to respect my neighbor's wishes and pack it up and move out. So I ended up cold calling them and introduced myself, and that was probably one of the best connections that could have happened for growing company. I met Danny McNair and Robert Glauser, and they were much older, looking to retire, but I would say the spirits were the same. We wanted to do excellent work. We wanted to take care of our clients, and we wanted to take care of our people, and those were the three main priorities. We were very much aligned. So we had breakfast the next morning. I got to know them a little bit. They got to know me, and I always like to say that we decided to move in together before we got married. So that next week, I brought my truck and trailer over to their office and started working out of their office. And we worked separately, but we got to know each other over about a 6-month period of time. And we talked about what we really valued, what type of work that they do, how do they treat their employees, how do I treat my employees. We wanted to really get to know each other. Throughout that 6-month period, we both felt really good about partnering together, and I started thinking outside of the box. How could I potentially acquire this company? How could I get funding? So I went the family route, and that's where it's when you have people that believe in you and believe that you can be successful. It makes you feel good and also puts an added bit of pressure on you. Money is involved, but we were able to work through a deal, and I was able to acquire this company in June of 2018. And Grown Company went from a 3-person company to over 25 overnight. And that was big, and that was fun and scary and all of those things at the same time. The previous owners stayed on board and worked with me for the next year and a half, which really was essential in that transition. And that spurred 2 other acquisitions from irrigation and then some plant healthcare from being introduced to other folks that worked with this company. And I never envisioned myself growing through acquisitions, but I have learned a great deal about that, and really making sure that at the end of the day, it's a win-win-win. It's a win for growing company, it's a win for the company that's being acquired, and it's a win for the clients. And as long as all of those 3 check that box, then it's gonna work. And we've had great success with that. And then from that, we have used that to really be a catalyst for our organic growth on top of that. And so I would say, once we made that acquisition of the first company, and we really started seeing the buy-in and the success of the team members coming over to Grow Company, working on these clients' houses, that's when I realized, okay, I think we're gonna make it. I think we're ready to keep pressing forward. And since then, my focus has been bringing on and building an excellent team, because I cannot do this by myself. My wife and I, we don't have the bandwidth to do it by ourselves, and we need great people. So immediately following that acquisition, it's been about building the best team, building the best culture, and setting ourselves up and the team for success going forward.
Wow, that is a really impressive journey, and I have a couple of questions that come to mind. I can imagine all the complexities of acquisition, right? And like the teams going from one leadership to the next. Obviously, you talked about how y'all had very similar values and things of that, but was there something that changed in your leadership, or how did you go about making sure that they trusted you when you brought on that other company?
That's a good question. I was very intentional in the fact that I did not come in that next day and act like I was the boss. I listened. I sat beside the previous owners and I watched how they continued to do things. I learned how they communicated with their team, how they communicated with their clients. Because for me, it was that getting that education. They had been successful doing it the way that they had been doing it, and I needed to learn that. In my previous life, it had been done a different way, and so I wanted to learn how these guys did it, and I think that served me well because I came in more inquisitive, listening, learning, asking questions, and then once I felt comfortable that I had the understanding and the ability to then lead these teams who had been, some of these employees who had been working with Danny Robert had worked for them for 20, 25 plus years. They had had clients that have been with him for 20, 25 plus years. I'm the new kid. And I needed to earn that trust and that respect before I just went out and started changing things or giving direction. And I think that was the most important thing I could have done to really ensure that this transition was successful.
That's awesome. One of the things that really learning about when you're an entrepreneur and you have your own business, Kyle, is the hills, the valleys, the just the ups and downs of managing an operation. And there's days where I'm like, how am I going to get out of this one? Or just the pressure that comes with it. So I want to talk about your mindset behind it all and just kind of talking about the difficult moments and what has guided like some of these big decisions that you've made. So my question is, can you walk me through some of the hardest seasons you face personally or professionally and what your mindset looked like while navigating those?
Yeah. So I would say professionally, the hardest time that I faced was my transition from the previous company to starting grown company. Um, because I had felt like there was some failure in that.
Mm,
And that was hard for me to swallow. And having to kind of pick myself up from that. And not only myself, I mean, my wife is really one of the main reasons why Grown Company's in existence, not only because of her support, but because she continued to work 3 months after having our first baby as a physician assistant to fund the business. Because, when you start a business, you don't make money for a while. Uh, but that transition was really hard for me because it just mentally, I felt like I was failing. And so picking myself back up from that with support from friends and family, of course, I really just had to start building a little bit at a time, having small wins, trying not to, once we had decided to start the business, understanding that, getting back to the basics and installing that small $500 seasonal color installation myself is okay when I was coming from installing $1 million landscape, and really embracing that and um, learning from those moments. And so, building on those small wins after, that feeling of failure um, was big for me. And um, I would say as it relates to, the business and the ups and downs, it is absolutely a roller coaster at times. And it's one of the hardest days when I first started with Growing Company was not necessarily with our frontline team, but as we were growing and there was a need for the management level, right? Other than myself, I needed other folks to come in and help manage things. selling that vision of who we are and who we are going to be, and opportunities for folks to come in and grow with me, because I'm a small company with bigger ambitions. That was hard, because you go through a lot of ups and downs with bringing in the right person, or maybe it's not the right person at the right time, and that really just takes time, and it takes trial and error, and that is probably one of the most challenging parts too, is because when you have turnover and you have um, those gaps, that's something I always have to fill, and so it takes away from the the visionary aspect and the growth, like continuing to move forward, because I always feel like I had to redirect my attention to make sure everything was going as planned. And when I say as planned, I'm a stickler for quality and making sure our clients are taken care of. And uh, I can't not focus on that. And if the team isn't in place, and when we've had turnover, I've had to redirect my attention and get into the weeds of the business, to ensure that we keep our clients. That's our first priority, is to keep them pleased with our services. So it's taken that time to build the team with the right people who get it, who want to grow with us, who see and buy into the vision of who we are. So we've come a long way. Really, over the past couple of years, we've come a long way in building that foundation.
That's great. One of the things that I had trouble with was the same thing, Kyle. For me, most people don't know, but we work for the same firm in Dallas. And when I decided to start my own thing, I had a really hard time letting go of what I used to do, managing a bigger team for a multi-million-dollar operation, and working with a leadership team, and what that life looked like. For me, I was like, why am I so like down about this? And it was like that same sentiment of, this feels like failure. You go from managing all these things to trying to manage yourself, and you don't even know what you're doing. For me, that was, the case. Is like, okay, what do I do next? And that fear of failure, of this is never going to work out, and like having to talk yourself through all of that. I almost, at probably, it took me like a year some change, where I had to say, that was your old life, and it's okay to mourn it. It's okay to say, be sad that's no longer the case, but there had to be a turning point. And the same thing with you, is like leaning on my family, that, hey, I can do this too. And it takes a long time. And I think that's one of the things that people don't understand, like how long it truly takes when to build something, to have your attention to what you want, the vision. And sometimes you have to focus and put out a fire somewhere else, where you don't have the team build out yet. So thank you for sharing that. And I can only imagine how many people go through that, but they think they're the only ones, who, even leadership, who goes from one company to another, and always having that feeling of what used to be, but having to think about now what their future looks like, and being excited, and changing direction. So the other question that I had for you was just your approach to setting goals and your long-term vision. How do you go about now setting goals and saying, like, this is what I want to do with Grow and Co?
Golly, we do that all the time. And I would say, I mean, formally speaking, we set our budgets every year. We're crying like crazy to wrap up our budget for 2026 right now, which is going to give us, right, our financial goals and targets for next year, as how we want to grow the company there. That is then the blueprint for the year, and we measure against that constantly. We have our metrics in place, and we are constantly looking at that from a leadership team perspective, to the management perspective down to our front lines. It's going to be look at that consistently to make sure that we're hitting our targets throughout the year. That was something we started about 4 years ago, and we're really starting to fine tune it now. And that to me is wonderful for the day-to-day business. Making sure we're all aligned, we all have our goals for the company, but that's purely revenue, right? That's purely profit and how that will build the company from a financial perspective. What has changed for me over time would be, what are my goals for growing company? If you would have asked me back in 2018, I've already surpassed what I really wanted the company to be. Um, you know, Going back to the transition between where I had worked before and then starting my company, and that feeling of failure and then really being humbled, as I put it, I did not want to feel that again. And I, in a way, was trying to protect myself from failure. And part of that was by not growing too big and not having all of these moving parts. As I continued to grow, I understood that I really did enjoy building a team, building a culture, building a service that is desired from a set of clientele, and differentiating ourselves, bettering the industry, bettering people's lives. So that fire and that passion started to build within me. So my goals for the company have matured with that. We are in the midst of our current strategic planning for the company to really answer those questions of, where are we going to be in 5 years? How are we going to get there? What do we want to look like? And I have been challenged, internally speaking, over the years of, do I want to grow? Have I taken my foot off the accelerator of growth? And why have I done that? And really doing some internal work and thinking about what's really important to me. Growing is important, but only if it's done the right way. Growing is important only when you have a strong foundation. And growing is important only when your team is successful with you. And so I'm not here to want to grow the biggest company for growing the biggest company and for having the best looking EBITDA and for attracting all private equity. That's not what I'm here to do. I'm here to grow a company and a brand that is excellent for our people first, our clients, and really furthers the industry here in Texas. And who knows, it might be beyond Texas, but really gives our industry, a first-class professional service that attracts more talent, and helps grow all of our people and provide opportunities for them.
Yeah, that's great. So as growth happens, there's bigger teams and leadership is hard. I'm having to have those internal dialogues with myself of like, am I the right leader for my team? There's days where you try to give it your all, but you're just not in the right headspace.
Yeah.
And it just it honestly just sucks because you're like, man, I could have done better. I could have like, you want to give it your all, but sometimes you just can't. Even those conversations of like, you need to bring the energy as a leader. You feel like the tone, everybody looks at you for the right energy to feel them. And sometimes we don't feel or we can't feel ourselves. So how do you get yourself out of ruts and how long do you stay in those? Do you ever feel like, man, I'm not the right person, for my team, but how do you go back and say, I am, and I trust myself that I'm the right leader for Grow and Co. And I have everything that it takes. Can you walk us through that?
Yeah. I think I'm always questioning how I can be better at what I'm doing because my role as we grow like constantly is evolving. It has to constantly evolve because the team needs more from me in different ways. And whereas, early on in the career, it was, okay, I've got to sell the next job. I got to schedule it and I got to be there to lay the plants out to I've got to create the vision, create the excitement, ensure that we are growing properly and creating those opportunities. So my mindset and has to change all along the way and realizing that I'm human, I'm not perfect, shattering my ego because the second you have an ego is the second you get in trouble because I'm not perfect and I make mistakes all the time. Just ask my wife, and I, I have to learn from those things. Oh, I mean, I'm a student. I'm a constant student, and I listen to a lot of books, and I try to keep my mind sharp, and I try to keep myself in check, and I stay really close with my team on the front line all the way up to the leadership. I don't want I'm a very present person because I need that feedback and I want to understand, how maybe my mood that day is affecting the office in a way where I don't even realize that, oh, maybe because I'm a little bit grumpy today, that may not have anything to do with work is affecting the office. So I have to understand and have to constantly evolve to be a better leader. And yeah, absolutely. There's times where I think, this is exhausting and I don't know if I can do it. But I think constantly reading, learning, talking to mentors, finding the right people to talk to is helpful. And being real with my team. I don't act like I know everything either. I don't. And that, I think that's helped with really uh, not letting an ego get in the way is 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 allowing, my team knows I'm not going to know everything, but I'm always going to try to do the right thing. And the team learns from that and follows suit.
Yeah. How have you gone about finding good mentors that have helped you, and how much have they influenced and helped your growth?
Yeah. So you and I both went through a leadership training session
Yep.
and worked with an individual who is very key in um, the leadership development in my life here professionally and family, friends. I really try to align myself with those who I can trust, those who I value their opinions, and just listening. And at that time, when you find those people, or you find really, and those people to me, like I mentioned, I listen to a lot of books. So those people can be the authors of those books, and just listening constantly and thinking about how that parallels with what I'm doing and how I can change things. And again, I couldn't do it without my wife. She really is, a very strong, steady force in my life that helps keep me focused on the right things, down to earth, and yeah,
Well, that's beautiful. I agree with you. I think my family and faith and my inner circle are so important. And I see you talk about your family in interviews and other podcasts everywhere on your website, even to the initiatives that you have done with Growing Co, like the coloring and learning books for the kids within your community and the people that you service. So it's obviously clear that a family man is at heart of who you are. So I would definitely love to talk about that. And what does being a husband and a father and an entrepreneur look like for you? And what are some of the challenges and blessings that come with carrying all those roles at once? So my main question for you is, with all this responsibility on your shoulders, how does that work life integration look like for you, and how do you protect it?
Yes, it's a constant balancing act. And you know, if you really allow yourself to stop and think as it relates to the entrepreneur and the business owner, what responsibility we have for the team. If we have 80 employees, then we have families outside of that. You could have upwards of 200 individuals that are counting on the work that we do here and the security of a job, and the decisions that I would ultimately make to have that consistency and that safety of their job. And and so I like the term that you use, the work life integration, because I feel like that's absolutely what it is. I don't feel like I turn off my personal life on my professional life. We're very much intertwined, and it all boils down to the scheduling aspect for me. So I I take my daughters to school every morning, um, and then I will be present at their events at school where I can be. That's not to say I'm not doing the after hours meetings with clients or the social gatherings and networking or conferences and bettering myself in the industry, but it is something that I work very hard to integrate both my personal life with my family and my professional life, because they're one and the same. I mean, I am a father, I am a husband, and I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm not those three people separately. I'm all of them at the same time. And so that is why a lot of our company initiatives, you had mentioned, it's our Grow and Co kids, and I want to introduce horticulture to all of the younger generations. It's a quarterly mailer that we send out to all of our clients' kids, their grandkids. We do it to nonprofits. We send them out, and it's introducing kids to the world of horticulture and just how important it is to get out there and be in nature. Um, and then we also work our management staff works a 980 schedule, which is a 4-day work week. So every other week you have a 4-day work week to give you that extra day to be present for family things that may come up. And then we also offer maternity and paternity benefits all the way down to our front line. We currently have at least one crew leader out for paternity leave right now, and I think he's having his second on our program. So I think he really likes having kids now because he got leave. But that's kind of the point. And the point was, those are very key times in your life that you need to be present with your family, because the family is the foundation, right? And really, I know I've had my family to lean on, and my team has their families to lean on, and that's the most important thing. And then you can come to work and do a good job here. And so I want to really support that, and not only just for myself but the entire team. And that's where, yes, there's a constant pull between the husband and father and the entrepreneur, because the entrepreneur in me, I'm a workaholic actually. I could work constantly. I could keep pushing, pushing, pushing for growth, growth, growth. And I do have to rein that in and have to keep myself in check at times so that I don't tip one way or the other. Because if you, everything's great in moderation. And so it's a constant daily, you know, I wouldn't say struggle, but it's what I plan, and I have others help me with that as well. And so to your point, I surround myself with those who support the way that I want to be in that way as well to help keep me in check. Um, yeah.
I have almost found, Kyle, that for me, the more I integrate like my family into what I'm doing with business and like my business when they need to know of something that is going on, it almost flows better. My family knew that I was talking to you today and they're so excited. Hey, good luck in your podcast today and let me know how it goes. Or if I'm working late or if I'm stressed about something, they know why. And it's like, okay, we understand instead of like taking it personal or kind of that's when they step up and say, okay, how can we help you? And it used to be where you would hear people talk about like absolutely no work when I come home. And that has never been something that I have been able to, or it hasn't worked for me. And it's good to know that there's different ways of doing it.
Yeah.
I want to ask you if you have like some advice for the younger generation who's interested in this field. Because you're, a younger entrepreneur as well. So what advice would you have for them?
Yeah. I would say don't be afraid to put in the work. This industry is an incredible industry. The people are wonderful. It's a tight knit community, and it's a growing industry. Our state is growing, and the emphasis on the green industry, I feel like, is only going to continue to grow based off of our awareness of environmental impacts and sustainability and the value of preserving our outdoor spaces. I think that it will only continue to grow and evolve and become more important, especially as populations and densities grow, which is happening in our state of Texas right now. So I would say, first and foremost, don't be afraid to put in the work. And in today's society, sometimes that grind can get a negative connotation, but really going out there, grinding, learning, and enjoying it's important. So don't be afraid to put in the work. And then I would also say having your horticulture knowledge is great. I would also emphasize the importance of customer service and being very client focused, because ultimately, if you don't know the answer to a question, because even coming out of the Texas A&M Hort department, first starting my career, I didn't know everything. I had to learn and I had to experience. But if I could take care of that client, communicate properly, have them feel heard and valued, it was going to set me apart, set the company that I was working for apart. And I would say that is often overlooked, but the ability to really deliver high customer service is extremely important.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I have two main questions here before we close out and want to talk a little bit about the legacy that you want to leave behind. So when all of this is said and done and people talk about the impact of Kyle Cahill, what would you want your legacy to be?
Goodness gracious. That's a loaded question. When I started Grown Company, I read the book Let My People Go Surfing,
Mm,
and written by Yvon Chouinard, who started Patagonia. And the if you look at the legacy of Patagonia and what he's been able to do is grow his brand in an industry known for scandal, known for waste, um, and focus on organics and sustainability, building it the right way, taking care of his people, and seeing his success in doing that, and then using that book as I had started growing company to make sure that I was focusing on the right things. I wanted to focus on building the company that first looked at how we were impacting the greater good of where we were working in our communities. Were we using proper practices? Were we looking at organics? Were we looking at being good stewards of the environment through our practices? Because at that same time, our team was carrying out those practices and ensuring that they were given the best opportunities to be successful and enjoy their job. And I would really hope that the Grown Co's legacy is one that is kind of twofold, that we are helping to impact the future of landscaping in a way where it is done in a very responsible way, and that we are building a culture for our team to not only thrive professionally, but help support that personal growth that they want to achieve as well.
That's great. So, a couple of rapid fire questions. These are always fun. So, just whatever comes to mind. What book recommendation for aspiring leaders do you have? I know you just mentioned one, but do you have another one?
Sure. So I'm reading one right now that I'm really liking. It's called Atomic Habits.
Read it, loved it.
Yes, it's very, very good, and excited to finish that one. Then I would say one of the kind of bigger ones that had a big impact on me was The Obstacle is the Way with Ryan Holiday.
Yep.
One was also very, very good as far as, looking at things that are challenging. How is the obstacle actually the way? And so, yeah, those two.
I love that one too. You actually recommended that one to me, and I read it, learned a lot. Reason why I have these type of desks and tables to declutter my space. So, highly recommend those two. What is one of your preferred ways to relieve stress?
I love getting into the mountains.
Mm.
Going out, taking the deep breath, going for a hike, and getting into the mountains is a stress reliever for me.
Awesome. Favorite artist or song?
Gosh, I love music. I love all types of music. It just depends on the mood. Like, honestly, it could be, I would say overall, probably the band. It's a band called The Band, if you're not.
I love it. Guilty pleasure snack.
Does my wife get to listen to this? Let me see. I would say Cheez-Its.
That's a good one. Best movie of all time.
Let's see, best movie of all time. A River Runs Through It.
Your favorite horticulture fun fact.
That's a tough one. A fun fact. What would be an example? Give me an example of a fun
I
fact.
don't know, Kyle. Something that most of us wouldn't know.
I'll have to come back to that one. I don't know.
All right. Your favorite sports team.
The Aggies.
Oh, gig 'em. One defined phrase that shaped your journey.
Well, I would say our slogan, be loyal to your soil. It has a lot of different meanings, from not only the sustainability aspect, but also from, being loyal to your community, where you are, the support to your hometown, like all of that stuff. I would say that's probably the most memorable one.
Love that. Two more. Is there a daily habit that keeps you grounded?
I would say taking my girls to school.
Hmm, love that. And one thing you wish you had known earlier in your career.
That I can only control myself. I can't control what others do, and just to focus on what I can control.
That's great. Well, Kyle, thank you so much for being here today. I have learned so much. You're someone that I deeply respect and look up to. I've learned so much from you in the years that I've known you, and I can't wait to see everything that you do, all the people that you impact. And again, thank you so much for this opportunity.
Well, thank you, Dayani. It's been wonderful to speak with you, and you are far too kind. And it's been a pleasure getting to know you as well. And I look forward to continuing our relationship.
Thank you, Kyle.